Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We start with the chapter on biodiversity, classification and conservation, and this is A2 syllabus, and we're doing the second video on this, and we've done one video before, and this is going to carry on with the rest of the chapter. Whenever we start a chapter, you must remember to start with the syllabus, and the syllabus must be in front of you. And if you look at the first point of the learning outcomes, is define the term species, ecosystem and niche, and then explain that biodiversity considered at 3 different levels. Then explain the importance of random sampling, then the suitable methods which we're going to go into detail about. Then the maths that we've got to do in this chapter, the SPEARMANS rank correlation and the PEARSONS linear correlation. Now that's important that we know these two mathematical problems that we're going to handle. And then we have to do the SIMPSONS index of diversity. So basically 3 maths topics that we need to cover in this chapter. Every time make it a habit to go through the learning outcomes, then revise the chapter, and then again go through the learning outcome and see, did you cover up everything? Did you cover up every point of the syllabus or not? And that's one of the best ways to revise for A-level biology. First, let's look at the definition of species. How do scientists define a species? Now, species is a Latin word meaning kind or appearance. Now, what do we say? Why do we say? We say the species is a group of organisms having the same morphology. What is morphology? Morphology means how do they look like? Physiology. Do they have lungs? Do they have gills? Biochemistry. Do they have mitochondria? Do they not have mitochondria? Bacteria do not have any mitochondria, but eukaryotes have mitochondria. Do they have chloroplast? Do they not contain chloroplast? And then, of course, we come to the latest addition, which is DNA sequences when grouping organisms. So species definition must be very clear to all of you. The biological species concept is the primary definition of the term species. Then we look at another very important aspect of species is the biological species concept defines a species as one or more population that can interbreed. The importance is that they can interbreed to produce fertile offsprings, but are reproductively isolated from other groups. That means they do not reproduce with the other groups. When 2 species are prevented from interbreeding, we say that the species are reproductively isolated from each other. Now, barriers to reproduction ensure that the members of a species share a unique genetic heritage, a particular set of genes and alleles that is typical of the species but different from that of all other species. Now, as you look at this diagram, you can see what is happening. Reproductive isolation. These larks look very similar, but their songs are different. And they cannot breed with each other, even though their geographical range overlaps in the Midwestern United States. So the fact that they look in morphology, they're the same, maybe the color of the feathers is the same and everything is the same, the physiology is the same, but they do not interbreed, so it is a separate species. Why? Because their songs are different, they do not recognize each other as mates. So this is a very important concept of species which must be clear to all of you when you are doing the questions on these. Then we come to the definition of an ecosystem. An ecosystem can be a desert, a coral reef, a prairie, a tundra. The term ecosystem is as the system resulting from the interaction of all the living and non-living factors of the environment. So maybe in a pond there are fish, maybe in a pond there's soil, maybe in a pond there's water. So there is the living part and there's the non-living part. So an ecosystem consists of the biological community. Now, what does the word biological community mean? Biological community means all the living organisms, all the plants, all the animals, and the physical and chemical factors that make up its non-living, like the soil, the water, the sunlight, the air, the wind, the pressure. So non-living or the abiotic environment. And there are many examples of ecosystems in pond, a forest, estuary, a grassland. Then we come to the definition of niche. Niche means the role of an organism. Now, I don't agree with this definition, the role of an organism. It doesn't explain much. But I like the word, it says how an organism exploits an ecosystem. You see, exploit is not a very good word. Like I say, she exploits my kindness, or he exploits my kindness, as that, they misuse my kindness. So, but that is what nature is all about. is exploitation. I mean, bird is going to make a nest in a tree, not worried about what it's going to do to the trees. A caterpillar is going to eat the leaves, not bothered that it's reducing the photosynthetic area. So each species occupies a niche in the community. A niche is the role the species play and includes the type of food it eats, where it lives, where it reproduces, and its relationship with other species. Now you can see these birds, they feed in the middle part of the tree, and then we have feed in the lower part of the tree and all the bases of the middle branches, and feeds at the tips of the branches. So niche, role of an organism, or as I say, how an organism exploits. Exploits is not a very good word. Exploit means just do your own stuff, don't worry about what's happening to the other people, just carry on, be very, very selfish. Then we come to the word habitat, which is used very often. Habitat is a place where an organism lives. This can be a desert, it can be your backyard, it can be a lawn, it can be a forest. For example, a frog lives near a pond-like habitat. A niche is a job or function of an organism within its ecosystem. The frog eats insects and is eaten by small animals and birds. So habitat is the place where an organism lives. It's sort of like your address, where you live, your house. But in biology, habitat is the place where an organism, so there's an oak tree. So the oak tree is where? In a forest. Okay, so the forest is the habitat. The bird makes nest in an oak tree, so oak tree is the habitat. So this is what we have to understand between habitat and niche. So we've covered the three main define the terms species, ecosystem, and niche. Come to the definition of biodiversity. Biodiversity can be defined as the degree of variation of life forms in an ecosystem. And this is usually taken to include diversity at three levels. Number one, variation in ecosystems or habitats. I mean, there are all types of ecosystems or habitats. There's ocean, which is a watery habitat. Then there's a forest, then there's a coral reef, then there's a desert. So all these variation in ecosystem, naturally those which have water bodies, they have a different role to play in nature than those which are forests. They have a different role to play. So variation in ecosystems or habitats, that's the first thing that we talk about. The second we talk about is the number of species and their relative abundance. And this is called species diversity. And species diversity takes species richness into account, but it also includes a measure of the evenness of the abundance of the different species. So abundance means how many, like I gave you this example of forest A and forest B. Now they both have three types of forest, but look at the numbers that they have. Now here the spruce tree is only 100. So if there is a disease amongst the spruce trees, they're all going to die. But in forest B, we have 500, 700 and 300. While we have in the forest A, we have more of the oak trees, but less of the pine and the spruce. So this is dominated by one or two species and other species may be very rare. Now that is not going to be a very helpful thing. Species diversity is considered important because ecosystems with high species diversity tend to be more stable than ones with limited diversity. They are more able to resist change. So this is the second point that we talk about is species diversity. Then the third point that we talk about is genetic variation within each species. Now I'll give you a very simple example. Human beings are born with 4 blood groups. Maybe one blood group is at an advantage in a certain situation and maybe it is at a disadvantage in a certain situation. Similarly, every animal, every species, every population of any organism has a number of alleles. Genetic diversity is the diversity of alleles within the genes in the genome of a single species. And genetic diversity within a species can be assessed by finding out what proportion of genes have different alleles and how many alleles there are per gene. So genetic variation within each species. And I gave you an example of we've got 3 blood group alleles, but we have 4 blood groups. And so this is the genetic diversity that we have in human beings. Now your next point of the syllabus is use suitable methods to assess the distribution and abundance of organisms in a local area. Now the first thing that we're going to talk about is a frame quadrat. A frame quadrat is just made of either wire, rope, or made of wood even. It's a square frame of a standard area, usually 1 meter square, and is divided into small squares like a grid. And it is used by throwing on the floor and counting the organisms inside it. You can also use it to estimate the percentage of the ground covered by a particular, like white daisies or yellow flowers or something like that. The second is a transect. And a transect is just a tape that is laid across an environment, often just a tape measure. Can be used to count the organisms that touch the tape to study the organisms distribution. Okay, so we've got yellow flowers, then we've got 3 yellow flowers, then we've got white flowers along this tape or this wire or this rope. And you can also lay quadrats along the transect at regular intervals. So there's a line transect and there's a belt transect. So you can lay quadrats along the transect at regular intervals, maybe 1 meter apart or half a meter. It's up to you how to decide that, and record the distribution of the organisms. This is another picture of a quadrat and how we place it, and then we start counting them, and then we count on the squares, and then we can see how many plants do we have in a 1 meter square area. And of course, you randomly place this quadrat at different coordinates, and then you finally figure out that in this area, what was the general percentage cover of a certain plant or a certain, different types of plants which may be present. Another diagram to show you the types of transect, which is a line transect method. A transect line can be made using a nylon rope marked and numbered at 0.5 meter or 1 meter interval and all the way along its length, and the species touching the transect are counted. So you then make a record of the species which were present along this line or this nylon rope. We come on to estimating the numbers of mobile animals in a habitat, and so there's not much of a way that you can actually count every animal and then say, okay, well, there's so many mice or there's so many rabbits or so many wolves living in this forest. So there is a rough mathematical method that we use, and this is called the mark, release, recapture. So mark, release, recapture technique. So you go, you set up a trap, and you catch maybe the rabbits or the mice. And in the first day when you catch, say you counted and you caught, number caught and marked in the first. So this was 247. So you caught 247 animals and then you marked them. Now, how do you mark them? That the important thing is that you do not mark them in any way that they become, it's damaging to them, it hurts them. It has to be non-toxic. It has to be a waterproof paint, so it shouldn't be washed away by rain. And it should not make them more prominent and be easily predated. Then the next day you catch them again, and this time you caught 259. So the first time you caught 247 and the next time you caught 249. Now in the second sample, how many were those that you had caught on the first day, the ones that were marked? And those were 16. So the formula is very simple. So the estimated number in the population will be the first catch, which was 247. You multiply it with the second catch, which was 259. And you divided by the 16 the numbers which were in the second sample that had been marked. So basically 16 were from the first day because you had marked them, and then you caught them the next day. So the first day you caught 247, the second day you caught 259. Out of the 259, 16 were the ones which were marked. So you divide it by that and you get a very nice estimate of the population. So this is estimating the numbers of mobile animals. And you got a figure of 3998. These are the number of animals that we were studying. Now, brown plant hoppers are a serious insect pest of rice. So they use these sweep nets to catch a large sample of the plant hoppers in a field of rice. Each animal was marked with a very small spot of non-toxic waterproof paint, and then they were released across the field. And the next day, a second large sample was caught. So it's usually as we're talking of mobile animals that we are going to be talking about in the mark, release, recapture technique. Now let's look at the second mathematical issue that we need to discuss here. That's called the Simpson's Index of Diversity. Simpson's Index of Diversity. Now, when you've collected information about the abundance of species in the area you're studying, you can use your results to calculate a value for the species of diversity. And the value of the D range, D is the letter that we are going to use. So D is the from 0 to 1. The value of D ranges from 0 to 1. Now, if it is 0 or near 0, there's a very low species diversity. If it is towards 1, it is a very high species diversity. Now, how are you going to calculate this Simpson's index of diversity? Now, let's look at that first. We look at the formula. The formula D is equal to 1 minus sum of n, small n. So the small n is the total number of organisms of a particular species. And the big N is the total number of organism of all the species. Okay, so now let's look at this worked example. If you look at this worked example, we've got shore A and shore B. Now this is shore A and this is shore B. Now in shore A, the painted top shells were 24. In shore B, they were 51. The limpets were 367. They were 125. Dog whelks were 192, and in shore B they were 63. Then snake locks were 14 and 0. Then anemones were 83 and 22. Barnacles were 112 and 391. And mussels were 207 and 116. And periwinkles were 108 and 93. You must put these in Google search and look what we are talking about. You must know the names and what we are actually talking about. Now, when we added all of the first one, this was 1107 and this was 861. So this is the capital N. Now, to determine the species for shore A, how do you calculate small n over big N? Now, the painted top shells were 24. So if you do small n 24 over 1107, you get this value 0.022. And then you, of course, square it. So similarly, the limpets were 367. So 367 divided by 1107. What was 1107 was the capital N, was this figure. And so you do it for all of them. And then finally, what you do, you have to, it's N over N whole square. Now these are all these values. And you added all of them, and this is equal to 0.201. You have to realize you have to minus this. So 1 minus 0.201 is equal to 0.799. Now this of course means this has, because it's more towards the one side, it's 0.8 we could say. So the more it is towards 1, it means that it has a high species diversity. But if it was towards 0, then it would be a low species diversity. So this is how you do the calculations. I just repeat myself. D is the diversity index. 1 minus sum of n over small n over big N. Small n is the number of each organisms. Big N is the total. So in this situation in which we did shore A, the total was 1107. So then you calculated for each individual, then you said, okay, N was 24. Then you said 24 over 1107. So you got a figure about 022. And then of course you did the square of that. And then you added all the squares. So the sum of small n over big N, and you got a value of 0.201. But then you have to minus that from 1. So when you minus that from 1, you got a figure of 0.799, which is near 0.8. So that is towards the one side. So this has a high species diversity. So the next mathematical heading is Spearman's rank correlation. Now please understand rank means you need to rank this. So Spearman's rank correlation is used to find out if there's a correlation between two sets of variables when they are not normally distributed. Please understand this. They are not normally distributed. As with the other Pearson's linear as well, the first thing to do is to plot your data as a scatter graph and see if they look as there may be a correlation. Note that for this test, the correlation is not going to be a straight line. So the correlation need not be linear. There is not normal distribution. Okay, what do? We place 10 quadrats and we count the number of species R and the species S in 10 quadrats. So in the first quadrant, we had species R was 38, and then in the we had 24 of species S. In the second quadrant, we had 2 and 5. Then in the third quadrant, we have 22 and 8. And then we had 50 and 31. And then we had 28 and 27. And in the sixth quadrant, we had 8 and 4. And in the seventh quadrant, we had 42 and 36. And in the eighth quadrant, we had 13 and 6. And then 9, 20 and 11. And 10, 43 and 30. Okay, fine. But what do we do with this? What we do with this is we rank it. Now that's something which we need to understand and be very clear about. What do we mean by rank it? Let's look at species R. Now I've just written these numbers again. 38 in the first quadrant, 2, 22, 50, 28, 8, 42, 13, 20, and then 43. Now how do we rank them? So the smallest figure is ranked as 1. So you can see here now this would be ranked as 1. Then it's 8. So that will be 2. Then it's 13, so this will be third rank. Then what is after 13 is 20, so this would be fourth rank. Then 22 will be fifth rank. Then what is more than 22 से ज़्यादा क्या है 28, that will be 6. Then 38 will be 7. Then 42 will be 8. And then 43 will be 9. And then 50 will be 10. So you understand how we rank it. So we did a ranking of species R, and then we did a ranking of species S as well. So just go through this again and just understand it. What do we mean by rank? Rank means from the smallest to the highest. So 2 was the smallest, so that was rank 1. Then 8 after that, so that was rank 2. So the first you have to rank it. So the number of species R is given here in this column. And then you ranked it, and then this is the number of species S, and then you ranked the species S. Now, once you've ranked both the species, now see the rank of species R is here, rank of species S is here. Now you calculate the difference in rank. So 7 minus 6 is 1, and then you do the d square of it. So d is the difference, and then you do the d square. So if you look at quadrant 1, the rank for species R was 7, the rank for species S was 6, so 7 minus 6 is 1, so 1 whole square is 1. Similarly for 2, 1, 2, minus 1, and then 1. Now you add all the d squares. So you add all the d squares, and this is the sum of d square is equal to 12. But then what do we have to do with this? We have to use this formula. This formula is going to be given to you. You're not expected to remember the formulas. The formula is Rs is equal to 1 minus. Now this formula is going to be given to you, but you must know how to apply the formula. So this is sigma d square over n square minus 1. N square minus n, sorry. Now this formula is given to you. What is Rs? Rs is the Spearman's rank coefficient. Spearman's rank coefficient. Sigma d square is the sum of the differences between the ranks of the two samples. N is the number of the samples. Now as we substitute into this formula, we can calculate the Spearman's rank correlation coefficient for the distribution of species R and S. So simply what we did is we put in all the figures. So 1 minus 6 into sigma d square was 6 into 12. And then because n was 10, so n3 means 10 into 10 into 10, and then n minus 10, so 10 cubed minus 10. And we did all the maths, and we get this figure. Now we get this figure 0.93. Now what does the figure 93 tell you? The number is the correlation coefficient. The closer the value is to 1, the more likely is that there is a genuine correlation between the two sets of data. So our value is very close to 1, it's 0.93. So there appears to be a strong correlation. But however, if as with t-test and the x-square test, we need to look up this value in the table and compare it against a critical value. So this is the Spearman's rank correlation. First you rank it, then you calculate the difference between the ranks, and then you calculate the d square, and you finally find out an answer. If it is near to 1, the value is closer to 1, the more likely there is a genuine correlation between the two sets of data. Now the last topic is Pearson's linear correlation, and in this we sometimes have to see if there's a relationship between two variables. Are they correlated? For example, perhaps you measure the numbers of species P and Q in 10 different 1 meter square quadrats. Now you can see this table here which is showing you these quadrat and the figures. The first thing is to plot a scatter graph of your data. Note it does not matter which set of values goes on the x or the y axis. Looking at the graph, we can see that the data looks as they might be approximately on a straight line. It looks there might be a linear correlation. So what do? We find out the Pearson's linear correlation. In Pearson's linear correlation, the formula for this test is, I told you don't have to remember the formula. So the value R is the correlation coefficient. Then sigma xy, x is the number of species P in a quadrat, y is the number of species Q in the quadrat, n is the number of readings, in this case we use 10 quadrats, and x bar is the mean number of species P, and y bar is the mean number of species Q. X is the standard deviation of P, and y is the standard deviation of Q. So you just have to know these, and you don't have to remember the formula, but you must know how to put the formula and how we're going to use this formula to actually calculate this whole mathematical question. Now, first of all, what we do is we calculate the xy values, which is this one. So 10 into 21 is 210, 9 into 20 is 180, 11 into 22 is 242. So you calculate the x into y, and you then add all of them, and you get the sigma xy. Then you calculate the mean, which was x bar, which is of course the mean of this, which is 10.2, and then the y bar, which is 20.4. And then you calculate the nxy. N is the number, so n is 10, x bar is 10.2, and y is 20.4. So you multiply that and you get nxy. Then the standard deviation will have been done for you. You would have calculated the standard deviation and for x, and then the standard deviation of y. That's a separate chapter. And then you apply all this and you add all this, and then you put it into the formula, and you get the value is 0.81. Now you can see the value of R is equal to 0.81 is the correlation coefficient. Now this value should always work out somewhere between -1 and +1. Now a value of plus means total positive correlation between your two sets of figures. A value of -1 means total negative between your two sets of figures. A value of 0 means there is no correlation. Now here we have a value of R that lies quite close to 1. We can say that there is a positive linear correlation between the number of P and the number of species Q. So please understand this was Pearson's linear correlation. And that finishes this part of the chapter on biodiversity, and I'm just going to refer to the syllabus again, and then we will finish this video and we'll continue the remaining in a third video. We have completed 18.1, biodiversity 18.1, and this has been completed in this video, and we will continue with the 18.3 in the next video. Thank you for now.